Dry your eyes, Arsenal fans. The Premier League is done for a little bit, and we've got some European action to talk about as Arsenal take on Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. Very much looking forward to this one as we look ahead to the next game in today's Arsenal preview show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal preview show. Joining you, of course, as always, ahead of the next Arsenal fixture. Today, or usually, what happens is, for these shows, is I'm joined by one of the members from the Discord server. And as of the moment I clicked live, Garrett was indeed in the studio with me. Weirdly, he's disappeared. I don't know if it's a connection issue, but it's perfectly timed. So it means I'm going to be talking for a brief second about the game on my own, which I'm used to doing. Of course, I do a show every single morning at 8 a.m, if you weren't aware, all by myself with the help of you guys and girls in the chat box. So it's not necessarily going to be a challenge, but hopefully Garrett returns to us very soon, and we'll be hearing from him as one of the members, of course, from the Discord server about the game against Shakhtar Donetsk. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone you happen to be in the world in our chat box. James, good morning to you, to Wesley, to Grant, to Andy, NSW. We got Joey and Kian and Dara. I completely forgot to let you all know about whether or not we would be doing a preview show. So just do accept my biggest apologies. That there was no warning about this. So there's going to be plenty of people going, oh, there's another show. Tom didn't tell me. Well, this is me telling you completely late in this. Garrett says his laptop's frozen, so hopefully you can hop onto his phone and it will sort itself out. But for now, Shakhtar Donetsk. Well, I can tell you, of course, a little bit about the latest team news. Mikel Arteta was indeed in his press conference this morning and was speaking to members of the media ahead of the game tomorrow evening, was asked about a number of different topics, including, of course, who indeed will be available for Arsenal going into this game. Well, what was interesting, I think, when asked about Bukayo Saka was that he and Ødegaard, who was asked about, he said that they are both closer and they are both progressing well. Martin, though, still not fit, but that Bukayo, we will see how he feels today and in the training session that we also have a little bit later on as well. Now, that training session, of course, was for the first 15 minutes open to the media, and the media were indeed there, and plenty of them were there to see whether or not Saka and Timber in particular as another player would indeed be there and available. Well, I can tell you that of those that were there, Saka and Timber were not spotted in those moments. And so we have to question mark whether or not indeed either or both or one or the other will indeed be there with the squad tomorrow. It's not to say, of course, that they couldn't have come out later in the session. It may be they just didn't take part in the first opening period of the session. That would be very tactical and smart in some ways, I guess, of Arsenal. But it's obviously we have no idea or guarantees or confirmation about whether or not Saka was in training yesterday. Garrett seems to have sorted out his problems. How you doing, Garrett? Get you well?
Yeah, not too bad. I have no idea what happened there, but
timing
we're
of
back.
That was incredible. Genuinely,
yeah,
like
impeccable.
The credits were rolling, and suddenly you disappeared. And I'm like, well, this is new. I was like, is he sabotaging me? Is this purposely done? But I know you're not that way inclined, Garrett. But no. Yeah, we're just talking there about the latest team news from Arsenal and Saka not being present in the open training session that was seen. Timber also not there. I have a little bit of an inkling that, we don't know whether or not players then join later on after the journalists have left the session so that Arsenal can be, as they like to be, a little bit, what's the words? I guess closed off and private about some of the question marks in their squad. But how does that make you view, I know our selections didn't include either of those players, but how does it make you view our squad going into what is, still another must-win game for Arsenal in Europe?
Yeah, I think regardless, I probably would have rested them, or at least Saka for me. I think even if he had maybe played a few minutes against Bournemouth, I think I still would have probably put him on the bench to start with. If we need him, we can always bring him on. But for me, I think I would have had him on the bench. Timber now, I probably would have started, and it does deplete the squad a little bit, but I think we still have enough for this game to beat Shakhtar. But yeah, it's obviously could be potentially famous last words.
Yeah, you never know. They've had a difficult start, both in Europe and domestically. They sit fourth in the in the Ukrainian league, sorry, at the moment, behind Dynamo Kiev. But then two other sides, I'll be very honest, I know next to nothing about. Alexandria, I think, is one of them, and I don't know the other team, or rather, I've never heard of them. Of course, I think most people would have heard of like the likes of people remember Zoya, who we played in the Europa League, I think, a few years ago. But in the Ukrainian Premier League, it's Policia Zhytomyr, who are third in the table at the moment. Shakhtar have won 6, drawn 1, and lost 2. Those two sides, Alexandria and Policia, are both unbeaten alongside Dynamo Kiev in the opening 9 games of the season. Zoya Luhansk are down in 10th at the moment in the league. And Vorskla, people may remember as well. They're currently 12th in the Ukrainian Premier League at the moment. And in Europe at the moment, Shakhtar have lost one and drawn the other and sit in 27th place, also struggling in that competition as well. So when it comes to the game, there will be an expectation, ironically, just like there was at the weekend against Bournemouth, that Arsenal should dominate and should win relatively comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, I know it was 3-0 away against Atlanta. I think it could have been a few more. I watched highlights earlier on just to kind of get a look back at the game, and I think it was Atlanta could have put another 3 past them, maybe. I mean, they do seem a bit susceptible, but obviously, they're going to go for it as well. They really have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? As you said, not the greatest start in Europe. They need points on the board, and kind of anything. I think this new format potentially encourages them to go almost, maybe gung ho is the wrong word, but they need goals on the board. Goal difference could end up counting. So, look, they're going to be up for it 100%. Obviously, advantage that it's at the Emirates, but yeah, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah, I mean, they will present with challenges, and they will, they shouldn't be taken lightly. But how much rotation do you think we might see in this team? Not enforced, because we know that some areas of the team may see enforced rotation, but with Liverpool on the weekend, could we see some even more, fringe players like, we've seen on the bench Kivio, we've seen on the bench Zinchenko recently, Waneri, some of the young players as well. Jesus has also been on the bench, not been part of the senior squad. Jorginho. How much rotation do you think Arteta might opt for in this one?
I think those Champions League nights he does, as he does in the Premier League, he likes to keep quite a lot of seniority in the team. And look, I kind of hear it. Those Champions League nights, things can happen. And you don't want to be on the end of bad results kind of as early on. Look, we have one draw. It was a tough away game, but it still was a draw. So we really need to be winning this. And I expect some rotation, but probably not maybe as much as some of us would like, I would say.
Just a quick dive into Shakhtar's squads themselves. They've got a few, decently high-profile players. Most of them are young. A couple of them, as you would imagine, are Brazilian. Marlon Gomez in midfield being one of them. They've also got Sudakov, who's the most highly rated player. In fact, this season he's already got 7 goals and 2 assists as an attacking midfielder in 11 games so far. So he's having a very good start to the campaign. You got Kevin, the Brazilian left winger, another Brazilian named with a classic English single name there, just Kevin. People might remember Fred back in the day as well. Quite a few we've had down the years. Well, Kevin is the latest one. A couple of Freds, actually. The striker, and of course the one that played for Manchester United and Shakhtar Donetsk, of course, as well. And then Matvienko, a centre-half who 28 years of age now, but was linked to Arsenal, actually, a few years back, but never made the move away from Ukraine and instead stayed there. The narrative of this game, Garrett, is, of course, there's a emotional element to this game with the situation, of course, going on continually in Ukraine. And as always, our thoughts are with the people that are currently suffering out there, but also for Alexander Zinchenko, who has been, very outspoken and very much at the forefront of a lot of the talk around the Ukrainian war situation. Do you expect Zinchenko to get minutes in this game? We heard Arteta asked about this ahead of the game against Shakhtar, and he's not played too many minutes. And most fans really question kind of his defensive side. I'll read you the quote Arteta said. He says, yeah, hopefully he will have a big role. Obviously, we need him fit, available, and it's a big factor to maintain consistency. And last year, we had quite a lot of issues with that. At the start of this season as well. Hopefully, he is fit now, and we can start to use him, and he can start to impact the team in a manner that he can, which is really powerful as well. And that's what we're hoping for. So how do you see Zinchenko, not just, of course, in this game, but being used throughout the season?
Yeah, look, I think what he brings to us in build up, and I think is unquestionable, really. I tried to look and see kind of what the story was, but I didn't see the quotes about, that quote in particular about talking about how he could be back. I was actually tempted to put him in the lineup, but yeah, as I said, because I couldn't find too much information, I didn't put him in. But he'll play a role. I think he definitely will play a role. In those big games, I don't think so. But I think in games where not lesser opposition isn't the word, but less
teams you're expected to have more possession again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That I think is where he's, to be honest, that's his perfect skill set. He's invaluable there, really. So yeah, I think those games we will see him feature 100%. He won't be, just bench, a bench player for the rest of the season. I expect him to play. And as far as tomorrow goes, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of hard to judge sometimes when Arteta says, is someone actually ready? You kind of feel like you just have to wait and see. Will he be on the bench? And if so, yeah, I probably do expect him to get minutes. I think we probably need left back. I suppose we have a few options there, obviously, but I don't really want to see Kiwior left back. I'd rather see him in centre half. So I think kind of that knocks one option off the left back. So I suppose to keep squad healthy and cover there, yeah, get some minutes on his legs for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially because we've lacked some creativity of late with that Odegaard and Saka's fitness as well. He is, when he's on the field, one of our more creative players, even though he plays, predominantly as a fullback. He moves into that midfield. He creates opportunities for his teammates. And that's definitely something I think that should be considered. A lot of people have suggested, should we be using Zinchenko now with the options that we've got a left back as more of a midfield option? Could he offer something different in that role? I think I'd struggle to see Arteta commit to it personally, but is it something that you think it could be an asset for?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've kind of struggled with it as well, to be honest. I'm not sure. We can look at Arteta, who and kind of the profile of players Arteta has brought into the midfield. I mean, they're big dual winners. I don't really see him starting someone like a Zinchenko. Look, whose technical ability is probably right up there at the top for our squad. Let's be honest. But in terms of everything else, the physicality, I don't think he'd start in midfield. I just can't see it. A bit like yourself.
Yeah, I think it's just not in Arteta's style. I don't think at this point to do that. So I'm not expecting to see that. To be honest. Jonathan in the chat says I'd throw Jesus in as a bit of a surprise player. What do you see with Jesus at the moment? He came off the bench against Bournemouth, didn't really offer too much. He had one moment where he got into the box, a bit of quick feet, went down, asking for a penalty, but would have probably been better off trying to create a chance to shoot instead. Is this kind of last chance saloon this season for Jesus? And if it is, do you see him having much of an impact still?
Yeah, I think unfortunately probably is last chance saloon. As kind of tough as it is, I mean, I think those first 6 months were made a massive impact, and that since that World Cup just hasn't been the same. Yeah, I think the frustration among the fan base generally is kind of growing, and I do think Arteta is going to look at it as well, probably in the summer, that if he doesn't improve it, he will move on. But I think obviously that as well kind of rolls on. I think it affects the player, no doubt. I mean, I think his confidence is just at a low, an all-time low, and then kind of he kind of defaults to almost kind of going for himself sometimes, and then that kind of just, I think, builds the narrative more and more around it. People are saying he's selfish and he's this, but look, I think he's just horrendously out of form and low in confidence, to be honest.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that he's a player that needs goals. He's a player that needs minutes. But it's about where do you get them? I think this is potentially with Saka, still a question mark out of this game. Somewhere you maybe could bring him in. You could bring him on the right hand side. You could play him on the left. You could play him up front and move Havertz into that attacking midfield role. Potentially it's an area that we've got, we're lacking in a little bit of strength and depth right now because of the injuries that we've got in those areas. But I guess that a lot of people would like to see Ethan Nwaneri start, this game. Would like to, and have been calling for it. I've been calling for it. I've been saying it on the channel for a little while now, as far back as the Leicester game and the Southampton game. And ahead of Liverpool, there's no inkling that Odegaard is going to be back for that. And we lacked so much incisiveness and directness, even in the opening 30 minutes when we had 11 against Bournemouth, that it feels as though if there is a player that can perhaps come into the attacking midfield role and really, change the dynamic somewhat, it would be him.
Yeah, agreed. No, 100%. I think he's the man to do it. And look, I understand, I suppose, the caution from some people because look, he's a young lad, no doubt about it. But I don't. I think he's ready. I'm going to be honest. I really do. And I think that's been shown in the cameos that he's given so far this season. I think he's shown that he is ready to step up and be a key player. Well, key player maybe is a jump too far, but a member of the squad.
Player. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, someone who can contribute, someone who's going to be an asset. Someone that. And what frustrates me, and I brought this up before, so apologies for repeating myself, listeners, but I feel as though if you're bringing him on against Leicester when you need a goal at 2-2, and you're bringing him on against Bournemouth when you're losing and you need a response, if you're trusting him in those moments, why wouldn't you trust him to start a game that you need to win? There's a question I have, I guess, Garrett.
Yeah, no, I agree. I will, we can discuss the lineups, but I've put him in my one because I do think it's got to come at some point. And look, obviously next week, if I'm not mistaken, we are playing Preston, so you'd imagine he will start that one. But I think he can make an impact on a higher level than that as well. I don't think he'll be what's the word, just kept to cup ties. I think he can make an impact in the league and the Champions League, to be honest.
Agreed. Sticking with the midfield, Mr. 142 in the chat says, let's talk about Rice on the ball. I know he's obviously received a lot of criticism for England, particularly from fans across the spectrum about his role in the England team. But Mr. 142 says, do you think that Arteta plays him in the 8 because he's not progressive enough in the number 6 role? Because Arsenal fans think our best midfield is Rice, Merino and Ødegaard at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I do think it's harsh to say he's not progressive enough in the 6. I mean, look, there's different types. I think of, as we all know, obviously different types of kind of number 6s, if you want to say it. But I think I do think it's overblown. I don't think he's that bad. I really don't. No, I do think it's seriously overblown. I prefer to see him at 6. I'm not going to lie. I think I prefer him when he's seeing more of the game in front of him. And yeah, I don't know. I don't. He's done a job at the 8. I don't think anyone can deny that. He's some big contributions, but yeah, I don't know about yourself, but I would prefer to see him deeper in Merino a bit higher up.
For clarity, according to FBref, he completes 7.64 progressive passes per game, which ranks him in the 91st percentile of all midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues. To suggest he's not progressive enough, I just think is a step too far. I'm not saying that M142 is saying that. I'm just saying that for those that do feel he's not progressive enough, the numbers speak for themselves. These aren't shocking statistics. He's also good at carrying the ball. He's ranked in the 86th percentile for progressive carries. Against Bournemouth, he was the one driving Arsenal forwards, taking the ball from deep, moving it into those spaces. So yeah, I struggle with that. But I think I agree with you, Garrett, that I'd like to see him moved into the 6. Obviously, we haven't really had the personnel, I guess, in Arteta's eyes to do that with Ødegaard being out. I think the midfield of Rice, Merino and Ødegaard will prove eventually to be the predominant starting midfield for our biggest games. And that's not a slight on Partey. That's just, I think it's the most progressive, attacking and threatening midfield that we can put together. I think Merino will show to people what he is capable of. And what he is able to bring to the team, and brings that Xhaka-esque type passing. I don't think it's fair to kind of judge him in a game where he's at his first start and, for most of the game he played out of position, out of his best role, and against a team with one more player than we had. I don't think that's fair at all. So I think we're going to have to judge Merino, on what we see going forwards. And I don't like the misrepresentation of him being a defensive midfielder when he's not that. Arteta didn't start 3 DMs against Bournemouth. It was, Partey, who is certainly a DM, Rice, who I think whose best role is a DM, but has played much more progressively in the left 8, and then Merino, who is at best a box-to-box, and then played, of course, for Spain in the most attacking midfield role during the international break, showing that is a role he can play. So, yeah, I think there's been too much said negatively too soon on Merino, maybe even sadly, in the hopes that, just in a way explaining away some of our deficiencies. The last question I've got for you before we go to lineups, Garrett, is on William Saliba, who, of course, will be suspended for the game against Liverpool at the weekend. I got asked this question this morning, and I did turn it into an article on football.london that will be going out tomorrow morning surrounding whether or not he should start this game, because should Arsenal use this as an opportunity to practice a back 4 that they would then use against Liverpool? Of course, we don't know if Timber's going to be fit for either of these 2 games at the moment. But should we use him sparingly and use it as a rest and then to practice for Liverpool? Or do you just simply use that, that time to practice the back four off the pitch, in the training grounds, behind closed doors, so Liverpool don't necessarily get an insight into what it might look like?
Yeah, I probably would go with the latter. Because I kind of would have envisaged him maybe playing tomorrow, obviously not playing against Liverpool, and then maybe not playing against Preston. I think there's some room for rotation there in the centre back line. Maybe keep Gabriel in, rotate Saliba, and play him tomorrow. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I think if Timber was fit and it was just changing that one piece to then maybe have a potential lineup for Liverpool, then I could see it more. The reason for it, I suppose, that we might do it. But no, with Timber, with question marks over Timber, no, I wouldn't. I'd say just go for the latter option and kind of just maybe practice it behind closed doors. But for tomorrow, I'd put Saliba in.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. And speaking of which, we'll go to the lineups. We start, of course, with Garrett's team. Talk us through your selection for Tuesday evening.
Yeah, so obviously with the news, kind of, well, I suppose lack of exact news about Timber, I haven't put him in. So I've gone for same back four as the weekend. So White, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori. Midfield, then I've brought Nwaneri in. Look, Partey has been very good. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But let's not forget, I mean, his injury record is not good. So I do think when there is the opportunity to kind of wrap him up in cotton wool, I think it should be taken. And I think there's enough progression there. As I said, I think the narratives to go around about the kind of lack of progressiveness from Rice is, as we talked about, overblown. And Nwaneri kind of provides that little bit of directness as well. I mean, I was actually there at the Leicester game, which thankfully turned out well in the end. But you even saw then he was just, making runs, direct runs. He was happy to go for it. And I think that's what we need. And it kind of helps a bit as well in the midfield. So I brought him in. Merino, look, I'm not ready to pass judgment yet. It's far too early. And I do think he's a quality player. He's shown that for Spain and for Sociedad. So I don't really have any worries yet, to be honest. Martinelli, look, the miss on the weekend, it was tough. But look, I just think he kind of has to keep going. He's kind of built up a little head of steam. So I think we just need to keep going. Havertz, I think, speaks for itself. Keep him up there. He's got a good record, and I expect him to do well. And then, for me, you could have brought in Jesus 100%, and you kind of talked about it. But for me, I've gone with Sterling. I actually did think he looked reasonably threatening, or I suppose should I say our most threatening player.
He got a lot of criticism. People said he weren't creative enough. He was kind of deer in the headlights at times. I almost feel like at times people are just looking to try and criticize him almost.
Yeah. No, great. Look, he was the one taking people on. It might not have always turned out as something, but look, you have to be, getting in there and taking people on to hopefully get something out of it. So, I've put him back in there again. And look, if we need to bring Jesus, I expect Jesus will come on, maybe around the 60th minute, 70th, maybe something like that. But for me, that's the lineup. And star man will be Havertz.
Yeah, Havertz is the same star man for me. The only change I've got from Garrett's team is Jesus on that right-hand side, not because of, anything to do with Sterling. I think an opportunity to throw Jesus in if you can give him a chance to build that confidence. His record in the Champions League is pretty good as well. And, having seen a little bit of Sterling against Bournemouth, we can see a bit of Jesus here. You got decisions to make for the weekend against Liverpool, depending on the reality of Saka. We don't know if he's going to be available, so it's kind of an audition for both, an opportunity to see both. But the rest of the team, it's the same as Garrett's. I've not swapped out Saliba. I think that you should use him. He's going to get a rest this weekend. He'll be back, of course, next week for the game against Newcastle. Another incredibly tough challenge. Preston, of course, we've got time to rotate players, but I really sincerely hope that when Nwaneri gets a start here, I think it's a great opportunity to play him against a struggling Shakhtar side, a team that we're expected to dominate, a great way to introduce him to a senior setup of players that's not in a League Cup scenario where there's loads of other kids on the pitch as well. Get him in the team, play him with the key players, see what he can do. And if he has a brilliant game, then he gives you a question mark for Liverpool and gives you an option for Liverpool. I'm not saying he should start that game. I'm just saying if he has a really good game here, you have more of an argument, in that sense. I don't think there's anything really to lose at all in Nwaneri at this point starting this game. So I think that it's a great opportunity to bring him in, and I certainly would do here. Havertz, as always, stays our star figure. Let's go to predictions. Garrett, scoreline and scorers, please.
Yeah, so I will go for a 2-0. They haven't got a goal yet. I know they had a penalty and it was saved. But I think we shouldn't be conceding. But I think we have a strong enough defence to put out there. I think they won't concede. So I'll go 2-0. I will go Martinelli and Havertz.
Lovely stuff. I'm going to go 3 with Havertz, of course, always on the score sheet. And if Winery, gets onto the field, I'd love to see him score. It'd be great. And I think, solidify that reasoning behind a lot of our fans and ourselves for calling for that to happen. So yeah, let's wait and see, and keep fingers crossed that turns out to be the case. Just want to highlight this comment from Jonathan in the chat. He says, FYI fans, apparently there's lots of tickets still available on the ticket exchange. So if you would like to go to the game, go to the game. We've had so much complaining about Arsenal fans not being able to get tickets. Well, no excuses. There are tickets available on the exchange, of course, for those that I believe at the moment did apply for the ballot and weren't successful. I don't know if it's opened up to the general public yet. Maybe Jonathan can provide some extra information about that. But, if you are and are able to access the ticket exchange and you've got a free evening, please make sure you head over and go. That would be incredibly appreciated indeed. Have we lost? Oh, Garrett's back. Good stuff. I thought we'd lost you again. Thank you to everyone in the chat box. Appreciate your time. Do make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, of course, bright and early for the 8 a.m. show, rounding up all of the Arteta press conference and more. And of course, then back on Wednesday for an 8 a.m. show, rounding up the game against Shakhtar Donetsk, of which I'm going to be at, of course, tomorrow evening as well. But Garrett, thank you so much for your time, mate. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, no, as always, I say join up to Discord. It's go cracking there, and she obviously gets coming here, so that's an added perk.
Indeed. If you would like to become a member, we do these preview shows ahead of every single game. We'll be doing another one ahead of the game against Liverpool. Unsure if that's going to be a live one like this or a pre-record. I've got a busy weekend, so it may end up being a pre-record again for a preview show. But thank you for all of you that continue to tune in and listen to our morning shows, and those that tune in the evening. Of course, our Western listeners are very unfairly treated with the 8 a.m. shows with the times they would have to watch it. So thank you for those that do listen and tune in and catch up, as well as those that are listening on audio platforms too. Leave us a 5-star review. That would be great if you could. As I say, I'll be back with you tomorrow. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.